we have the privilege to have Dr. Taylor today here. Thanks to the embassy and Fulbright, you have brought him here. Let me just mention a few things about Dr. Taylor. Let me refer to my notes here. Dr. Taylor is an associate professor of psychology. He was born and raised in Bradford, Virginia, and attended the University of Tennessee as a white scholar, as a widow scholar. Dr. Taylor joined the faculty of Medical University of South Carolina following his 2-year postdoctoral work. His duties included supervision of clinical interns and teaching in the College of Health Professions. He has published numerous articles focusing on the psychological impacts of chronic illness among children, attention deficit, hyperactivity disorder, heroism, and bullying among school children. Dr. Taylor teaches courses at both the undergraduate and graduate level within the Department of Psychology. His primary areas of research and clinical work are in the field of pediatric psychology. And we are really honored to have him here today talking about bullying and his experience. And we have access teachers, same about teachers here, and other teachers joining from far away. Okay, so pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Okay, I'll just say, is that right? Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I can run the clicker. Or I'll try to do it this way. All right, I have not been able to say, hey, y'all, in Uruguay, so hi, y'all. And when I say it in Canada, I've been in Canada since January. When I say it in Canada, they look at me like they have no idea. So we start off with a lesson that, y'all are here and UNs are over there. So the English has been interesting. Very honored to be in Uruguay with you all. And I'm going to present today some of the information I've been presenting up in Alberta and talk about some of the research. And I am keenly, they say keen. I'm keenly aware that you're going to be out of here by 3, right? So I will be a very good professor and stop about 10 minutes early wherever we are, and you all can ask questions. Cool? Good. All right. So it's always important to acknowledge the folks who helped you. And so on this slide, you see Conway Saylor and Steve Maida. Conway is a clinical psychologist, pediatric psychologist at the institution where I teach, board certified, very, very much entrenched in that field. Steve Maida is a social psychologist, and he does work with ostracism. And his colleague, Kip Williams, is at Purdue, and they are the experts in that field. I also want to acknowledge the Civil Foundation. We have a foundation at my university that provides funds for seed money for research. And so it's always important to acknowledge that somebody is providing us finances to do this. And then, of course, the Fulbright folks in Uruguay and Fulbright Canada pay us. So it really has been probably the crowning jewel of my profession to be able to have this 6 months and do what I've been doing, which is been wonderful. So that's where I'm from. That's Charleston. I'm gonna tell you about the geography of Charleston because it's going to play into the conversation about schools and ADHD. So Charleston is set up in a way where you've got a wealthy part of town, like other cities, right? A middle class part of town, and then the poor part of town. And the schools tend to mirror or reflect the standards of the neighborhoods in which they're placed. So when you look at Charleston, most families send their children to private schools if they can afford it. So, and the other cohort tend to move into the suburbs. So there's some real differences in the standards that are available for education for school children in Charleston. And that's not unlike other cities, but it's uniquely important as we talk about ADHD and bullying, because some of those systems drive diagnosis. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So that's my home institution. That's the Citadel. The Citadel was founded in 1846. It is the we began the Civil War. We were notorious for that. We fired the first shots on a ship that was resupplying the Star West, resupplying Fort Sumter. Fort Sumter is out in the middle of that harbor. And so our cadets decided to fire some ammunition at this Union vessel, and that sparked the Civil War. We've had students engaged in every military conflict since 1846, and our students come in on a 24-hour schedule. So when I'm teaching, I teach in uniform. So this is very nice for me, right? And if I'm having a particularly bad day, I walk outside and everybody salutes me because I don't like it. So it's a nice place to work. We also have a graduate program, and those are very traditional students that come in. You'll notice it's landlocked. So if we want to build something, we have to tear something down, and we build it back just the way it was. So there's a tradition that says the buildings are going to look the same no matter what. And you're going to tear something down and build it back, and it's going to look like it's one thing. So, we okay? Perfect. Is that better?
Sometimes, whatever we want, you
I'll play it back in mind. Okay. So that's my family. I'm watching time. That's my family. My wife said we'll never have a picture like that again. It's ridiculous that way. And it's not going to ever happen, so to enjoy it. So what I have done is made our Christmas card, our stationery, everything I can do, I've used it for. In Canada, 3 of the 4 children went with us to Canada. Phenomenal international experience. We need to go somewhere and get involved in the education systems of different countries. So there are my kids. And today we'll talk about ADHD. We're going to talk about how it's diagnosed in the United States. I would like to hear from you all what your experiences have been in your way with regard to how it's treated. And then we're going to talk about bullying and ostracism and how that diagnosis and other diagnoses play into kids getting bullied or ostracized. Cool? We good? All right. So ADHD is not new. I could throw any old guy's picture up here and make up something, but this is actually legit. This guy's name is Sir Crichton. He's the first person who ever talked about people having attention difficulties. And it was late 1700s, and he was going on a tour around Europe as a physician, and he started writing about people's mental health issues, and he talked about problems with attention and concentration. So one of the things that I have to do when I'm practicing with patients is educate them that ADHD is not new. It probably is overdiagnosed, but it is not a new syndrome. It's something that's been around for a long time. So that's Sir Crichton. We as psychologists, so I'm a pediatric psychologist by training. We as psychologists have done a very poor job of naming things. In the 40s, if you had ADHD, we said you had minimal brain syndrome. That's a lovely title for someone, right? And then you move on up the ages, and right now in DSM-5, which is how we diagnose, very modest changes, but you're looking for difficulties, as you all know, in different settings, at home and in the classroom. And you're looking for those things to be persistent and cause enough difficulty that the kid has a hard time achieving to the level that they're able to achieve. So that's ADHD. There is a that's my oldest, now he's 16 and has acne and doesn't want to talk to me. But there was a time when he was sweet, right? So that's Walker. There's a conversation in literature about the diagnosis of ADHD. Is this just a condition that we have made up? Is it just normal behavior that goes to an extreme? And there is some literature that suggests it's cultural. So one of the things I'm really interested in is how it manifests itself in different cultures. Because in Canada, I've learned that it is not diagnosed nearly as often as it is in the United States. And my hunch is in Uruguay and South America, there are probably some similarities with that. So we are hyper vigilant on making diagnoses, and I think there's a reason to talk about. And as educators, I want for you all to think about it and give me feedback, because this has kind of all come to fruition as I've had time to process and calculate. There are studies that show that it's not diagnosed at the same rates or levels in England. The same symptoms are there, so there is a problem with overdiagnosis. One of my favorite slides is to talk about animals. So you all know what an Irish setter is. craziest daggone dog you've ever seen, right? They're nuts. They're fun, but they're nuts. If two Irish setters get together and have puppies, they're going to have Irish setters, and they're going to be the same kind of dog. And if two Basset Hounds get together, you know Basset Hounds, right? I have seen the Basset Hound in the middle of the street with a school bus going by and it goes, and that's the extent of it, right? So two Basset Hounds produce Basset Hounds. If ADHD is really there is a genetic contributor. Someone in that family, the mother or the father, is like that child, if it's really there. And the heritability is about 0.7. So there's a large, and so what happens is this: I'm making a diagnosis and I will say to the parents, which one of you is he or she most like? And they point to each other and they get very angry. And then they realize that one of them is contributing. Often those folks have never been treated. So then if I'm trying to implement strategies to help, it's very hard for them to be consistent unless they're getting the treatment as well. That is the subset of children who really have ADHD. There's a whole other subset that we're going to talk about who are being medicated who probably don't have it. And that's really key, and that's that systems-based approach I want to talk about. So I love the Canadians didn't understand this, but you all get the Irish stuff. That fell really flat in January. We've got a problem with overdiagnosis. Have you heard of Ken Robinson ever? Okay. Yes. Have you seen his animation thing about? I'm going to show you. So this is where I need to switch to the other screen, and you just play it from where it is. Technology is wonderful when it works. I had a talk in, I was up in Edmonton, and none of the technology works, so I just had to write it, which was brilliant. If it doesn't, it's okay. Let's give it a minute. It's not, it's just right. It doesn't matter. All right, so Ken Robinson talks about all kinds of things that he thinks are wrong with the education systems. And one of the things he talks about is that we are training children to go to university. And we're not training children we're not embracing the differences that happen among children. That they can make an incredible contribution if they were involved in technical training. And so what I have found, and you all probably find this as well, is that these kids go to Alton High School with the expectation of going to college, and they get to college, and they go off, and they're either not equipped, or they don't have the support they need, and they come back home with their tails tucked in their legs, and bad grades, and it's an abysmal existence, and it's worse for the boys. So that's one of his mantras. The other thing he talks about is this epidemic of ADHD. So let's watch this.
This is the plague of ADHD. Now, this is a map of the incidence of ADHD in America, or prescriptions for ADHD. Don't mistake me, I don't mean to say there is no such thing as attention deficit disorder. I'm not qualified to say if there is such a thing. I know that a great majority of psychologists and pediatricians think there is such a thing. But it's still a matter of debate. What I do know for a fact is it's not an epidemic. These kids are being medicated as routinely as we have our tonsils taken out. And on the same whimsical basis, and for the same reason, medical fashion. Our children are living in the most intensely stimulating period in the history of the earth. They're being besieged with information and calls for their attention from every platform, computers, from iPhones, from advertising audience, from hundreds of television channels. And we're penalizing them now for getting distracted. From what? No, boring stuff at school, for the most part. It seems to me not a coincidence totally, but the incidence of ADHD has risen in parallel with the growth of standardized testing. These kids are being given Ritalin and Adderall and all manner of things, often quite dangerous drugs, to get them focused and calm them down. But according to this, attention deficit disorder increases as you travel east across the country. people start losing interest in Oklahoma. They can hardly think straight in Arkansas. And by the time they get to Washington, they've lost it completely. And there are separate reasons for.
All right, look where South Carolina is. So I'm in the crosshairs.
Yeah.
All right, so go back and let's talk about the schools that we talked about, public and private. The public schools are required to meet certain objectives on the standardized test, right? And if they don't do that job, then the teachers in the schools are penalized. So what they want is a homogeneous classroom where everybody's behaving the same way, functioning the same way, and if there's any deviance in that behavior, it's problematic for them. That's the first problem. So they make referrals to pediatricians for diagnosis, or to me, right? The private schools, let's pretend that you are a private school class, and every kid, all y'all are children, you're worth $18,000 a year, you're worth $18,000 a year. The entire classroom is worth $18,000 a year per kid, and I'm teaching you, and I'm the teacher. My obligation to those parents is to make sure, because of the money that they're spending on that private school education, that that kid is not causing my other children to have problems. So they are also quick to refer. So what happens is they call a parent-teacher meeting. Y'all have those?
Yeah.
God, they're lovely. I love those things, right? So you go into these meetings, and my mother's a teacher, and I'm from a long line of professors, so I can say this on solid ground. You go in there, and they pull their glasses down on their nose and look over at the parents, and they say, little Chippy's not behaving in class, and he's got to behave. And you need to send him to a pediatrician and allow the pediatrician to determine if he needs medication. So the parents react to that because the teacher's saying it's affecting his education. And mostly it's boys. It's third grade when it happens, mostly boys. They go to the pediatrician. The pediatrician has about 15 minutes to make a diagnosis. Now, they've had a history of knowing this child, right? But they've got about 15 minutes because in our system, pediatricians have to see about 30 or 40 patients a day to break even. So they're running, right? So kids got behavior problems, teachers aren't happy, the parents are stressed out. There's a very easy solution to this problem. It's provide them a stimulant. And if I were to get each of you all a stimulant in this room, what would happen? You would do better, right? It's a false positive. You would do better. So it feeds itself in a way that it justifies in the minds of the parents and the pediatrician and teachers prescribing medication. But what we may be doing is prescribing medication because the systems are flawed so much that you are driving that equation. And that's really problematic because there's a subset of kids that need the meds, but there's a vast majority that probably don't. So I can go into private schools in Charleston and there'll be 20 kids in the room and there'll be 3 or 4 boys, and 2 of the 3 or 3 of the 4 are on meds. Little girls have a harder time. They are often inattentive. You all probably know this. They sit in the back of the room and don't cause problems. So their difficulties happen when the academic task surpasses the intellectual ability. And they can no longer keep up by sheer intellectual giftedness. And that becomes a problem for them. Then they come in, and by that time, their self-esteem has been shot. So those are the issues around the diagnosis. Canada is a little different. Canada is more cautious and judicious with prescribing because their pediatricians are not primary care providers. So my daughter got sick the first week we were in Canada, and we went to a doc-in-the-box kind of place, like just a doctor, and he graded it, right? He'll never see her again. He made a diagnosis, gave her some amoxicillin, and out the door. If she were in the States, she would see a pediatrician along with everybody else. So there's a difference in the burden of work. So the Canadians are able to step back. I think you all are probably able to step back as well. And it's going to be really interesting to see what that looks like with regard to the number of prescriptions that are written for this. But that's what's happening in the United States. A 42% increase in the meds that have been given to kids since 2003. We good?
Yeah, well,
What don't do?
maybe a little bit of air.
Oh yeah, I'm good. Yeah,
Are you good?
but yeah, I mean, I've been in Canada, so anything. So let's talk about what happens to kids who are being diagnosed. And what we have found is that children who have behaviors that are different than their peers, whether they're within that normal range of difference or if they're ADHD, those kids are more often being bullied or ostracized by their peers. So because of the way that they behave socially, they're more often going to be bullied or ostracized. And it doesn't mean they've got to have a diagnosis of ADHD, but our work really focused on ADHD in that population. So before we get into the results, we got to do some definitions. And so there are different ways to describe bullying. And it's important as educators, and I'm putting myself in the same boat, that we talk about it in a way that's consistent. So bullying is a repeated pattern of behavior where someone in power hurts or does something harmful to someone who has less power, and is, again, repeated over time. So there's a chronicity to it, and there's a power differential. And that is how you define it. So I come in here today and you say, Chip, you are goofy looking, I don't like your bow tie, and your hair is like a chicken cut, right? And you say it one time, and I never see you again. That's not bullying. Bullying is every day I come in and something happens by a group or by a person that causes me emotional distress. The reason that's important is the popular press, the newspapers, have taken the word bully and they've hijacked it. And so everything now is bullying. And it minimizes when it really happens. So that's important. So you've got this idea that it's repeated over time, the actions are intended to harm, and it can be a group of folks. And there are many types of bullying. We don't have physical bullying often in the States. That's very, very rare. Wonder why. Any ideas? All right, I took my daughter to Altadore Elementary School in Calgary the first day, January 10th. And I walk her up, she's in 5th grade, and there's no barbed wire, there's no lock on the door, there's no policeman. It's a fluid campus. It's wonderful, but that's not what we're used to in the States. In the States, we have a police presence at every school with locked doors. So kids aren't going to fight, because if they fight, they get kicked out in the juvenile justice system. And they can't go back to school anymore. I mean, and their parents get sick. I mean, from early on, they're taught you don't get in the physical fight at school. So what's happened is we've had an increase in the number of kids who are doing things verbally or socially, the picking on people. And that's what we see more often than not. The other thing you see up there is ostracism. No one talks about ostracism. That's Kip Williams' work and Steve Meyer's work, and they've just written a book about it that is it's an educational book, but ostracism is worse than bullying. If I ostracize you, I basically pretend like you don't exist. At least if I'm bullying you, I mean, you're there, right? If I ostracize you, you're not even worth my time. And that work has demonstrated that is much worse long-term on kids' psyches than bullying. Both are bad, but that's worse. So when you look at those things, we're going to educate our parents, and we're going to educate our educators about what we're talking about. Cyberbullying is a little different. Cyberbullying is a repeated pattern, but the repetition is that you might post something about this, and it's reposted and reposted and reposted and reposted. That's the repetition. And the power differential in cyberbullying is that I don't know who you are. There's an anonymity to who posted. So the randomness of it makes the power differential. I don't know if you know who posted this about me, and now it's out there and it's repeated. So it's a little different, but it meets the definition. The nice thing about cyberbullying is you can educate kids about good digital citizenship and talk to children about how to behave on the internet, and they have some aha moments, because often they'll do things impulsively when they're kids, right? And they don't think about the long-term ramifications of it. But if you educate them on the front end about being good stewards of their devices and what they post, it works out better. But they're a little different. So just like ADHD is not anything new, people have been ostracized forever. This is from the Athens city-states, the Athenian city-states. They used to write down people's names on rocks, and if enough people voted to kick them out of the city, they were kicked out of the city for 10 years, ostracized. So it's not new. It's been around for a long time. But as I said, it is much worse. Look at what happens to kids who are ostracized. They have a loss of sense of belonging. We're good? I like your shirt. They have a loss of sense of belonging. They have a loss of self-esteem. They often lose the ability to understand who they are in the world because they are being excluded by their peers. Much worse. And so, what gender do you think ostracizes the most? No one is the same. I have asked that question in every country I've been in, every group, nobody misses it. Why do little girls ostracize? Now I sound like Elvis. Why do little girls ostracize? They ostracize because it's social exclusion, and sometimes they don't even realize they're doing it. So the beautiful thing about ostracism is you can educate girls about how to include other people in the group, and they will recognize it, and it will facilitate some growth and development. But long term, it's much worse. So there have been studies that looked at functional MRIs, where the brain lights up when people are ostracized, and the same areas of the brain light up when you're being ostracized that light up if you're experiencing physical pain. So it is significant, and we don't talk about it enough. We focus on bullying. We focus on bullying because I think, one, it's an easier word to pronounce. I mean, honestly, I think it's that simple. And I think it's not something that people think about because the person being ostracized doesn't even feel the need to complain because who are they going to complain to, right? They're being excluded. So be really aware of that. Your students can be bullies, they can be victims, they can be bully victims, or they can be bystanders. The key to intervention is the bystander. The bully is the person who is only bullying. The victim is the person who's being victimized. The bully victim is the kid who was bullied and now is bullying other children. Children with ADHD are those kids. They are the bully victim. They have low impulse control. They are more off. They learn the behavior from their peers. They replicate that behavior when it's appropriate in their minds to do so. And they do it in a way that's reckless. Terrible outcomes for them. So the bully victims are really bad as far as long-term psychological sequelae. The bystanders are where you have your chances to intervene. So as educators, you look around the room and you see the kids who will champion the child who's being bullied. And you cultivate a system of heroism where you've got kids standing up for it and being heroic. So if you're bullying them every day and you have the courage to stand up and say, Chip, let's go do this together. That's heroic, right? That's a heroic act. So educating these bystanders and making a system where the school understands and the children understand how important it is to advocate for each other positively is the key to this. It's a systems-based change. But the kids with ADHD are at risk. Here's some things that happen when you're bullied. You have school attendance issues, you have academic problems, you can't think in class because you're worried about what's going to happen to you. You know, we talk about the suicides and the homicides. They are, as we say, the black swan events. They happen. They're important. But far more often, we're seeing school attendance issues, psychosomatic problems, depression, self-esteem issues. And that's what comes into the office. That's what's presented. I want to tell you about, so there's very little evidence to say it's good for you. Parents in the South, I mean, you know where I'm from. The dads will go and say, what doesn't hurt him makes him stronger, right? He can be resilient. There's no data to support that. Bullying is not good for people. Let me tell you some stories. Oh, by the way, I'm a tenured full professor. I can say this now. Don't read this book. This is the book that's written by Susan Porter, and I don't have a bone to pick with her, except she's defining bullying the wrong way. And it's becoming really the book that schools go to, because it talks about social aggression, because no school wants to have a bullying problem. So she defines anything like being picked on as bullying, and that is a problem, because again, if I'm the development officer for a private school and I'm trying to recruit you all to pay me $18,000 a year, I don't want a bullying problem. So she's capitalized on that, and the schools have said we don't have a bullying problem. We've got a normal social aggression problem, and that pacifies it to some extent. So that's just an aside. It's not. It doesn't hold us. All right, 2 kids I want to tell you about, and then we're going to let everybody ask questions. And I've got, I'm doing good. This is like class. I got 2 minutes. All right. Isabel. Isabel's father died 2 months ago of pancreatic cancer. I flew back from Calgary to do the eulogy for him. He's had pancreatic cancer for about a year. Prior to that, in 3rd grade, 4th grade, she was getting bullied by her peers. And she would stop going to school because all of her peers were picking on her. Normal kid, wasn't doing anything wrong, wasn't doing anything that would put her in the limelight, but she became a target. And what happened was, we had to spend a year of therapy. Think about this, a 4th grader, a year of therapy once a week, trying to teach her how to advocate for herself and be resilient and to be a hero to other children, to stand up. The beautiful thing about her story is she learned how to be a hero. The sad thing is the school never owned the fact that it was going on. And they also were resistant to intervention because there's a stigma associated with having a bullying issue at your school. And so she has learned to be the hero for other children who have been picked on, stepping up and helping. And that's made a cultural shift in the school. So that's the best case scenario. The problem is, she learned the behavior when she was under stress. What was the behavior? Not to go to school, right? Not to attend school. So her daddy gets sick, and even though the bullying issue gone away, the behavior that she learned manifested itself again 3 years later, and we stopped going to school. So just because you solve the bullying problem doesn't mean the behaviors you learn go away. They're still there, right? That's Isabel. Early on, I showed you a picture. Great looking family. I was doing this work long before God blessed me with my daughter. That's Kelly Gray, all right? Kelly Gray is the Irish setter of Irish setters. And there is a genetic contributor in the family, and it's not me. And my wife will laugh and say, you're right. There was a 50% chance to 70% that one of our children would be diagnosed. And if you look at my wife, and you look at her purse, and you look at her list she makes, now she compensates. She's it. She's wonderful, but she's it. So I've got an Irish setter that probably is the strongest Irish setter you can ever imagine. So Kelly Gray was in a public school, and we moved downtown. I tell you this story because it's not about Kelly Gray. This is what happens to little girls and little boys who are getting bullied. We move her to a different school. ADHD is a context-specific diagnosis. The context, the environment that you're in, determines how important the diagnosis is. If it is a situation where you're going to have homogeneity and attendance and there's no recess and that type of thing, you're at risk. So we moved her from a public school to a private school because we moved locations. And we got her downtown. She's in this school, and it's the same school my son went to, grade school. It was a kid-school mismatch. And they wanted her to behave in a way that she was not capable of behaving. And what happened, it happens to all parents. Like, I was living it clinically, I knew it, but I was a parent at this point, right? The meds kept it ramped up. So she went from taking a small dose to more dose to more dose to more dose to try to be able to sustain herself in that classroom, because that's what the teachers expected. And so the teachers were saying, so teachers can be bullies too. Teachers were saying things like, have you taken your medicine? In front of everyone. I want you to go over there and I want you to put these blinders up And I want you to focus here and do this. I want you to come in early and be early in the morning and the afternoon. Maybe well-intentioned, maybe not. But there is a focus on these kids that puts them in the crosshairs and their peers recognize it. So one day I am hanging out probably in my office, and my wife, this may be loud, so let me turn it down a little bit. My wife says, Chip, you gotta hear this. And I had played this all over Alberta, and every psychiatrist has said to me exactly what happens to kids. This is what my daughter said. You ready?
He's so mean. They're so mean to me. I don't know why. Friends or teachers? Teachers, everybody. It's never my friends. I can't handle it. I'm not trying to grow up. I can't do it anymore. I don't want to be in that school. I want to go to a different school where people are nice to me. Like, no, that was great. But he takes me stuff these days. Everybody will pressure on me. I can't do it anymore. It's too hard for me. You say maybe it's just because you're in third grade and it's getting harder now? I don't know. I just don't feel good. I feel like he's just so lazy. You know, like you're doing stuff. I can't do it anymore. I just want to go to sleep and never read a weekend. I'm just oh my God.
That's the story. So the beauty of this is clinically, as a clinician, we call something that can be a teaching moment. But that's what parents are dealing with when their kids are getting bullied or picked on at school. And their stress level goes up, and the parents don't know how to handle it, and there's a knee-jerk reaction to medicate and make it go away. And I think we're doing damage not having empathy and going through and trying to help. So that's what I have been doing quickly. That's the Reader's Digest version. The research is looking at parental stress and teacher knowledge. Now, I think if teachers have knowledge of condition, you all are going to have more empathy. And if parents have knowledge of condition, they're going to have more empathy, and their stress levels will go down, and they'll be better able to advocate for their children when their children are going through problems or difficulties. I can tell you, when this was going down as a parent, it was incredibly hard to be objective and not be stressed out about it, right? So I've got the knowledge base, so I can imagine what's happening to parents when it's happening consistently, and there's nothing they can do when you hear that kind of stuff. So we've got 5 to 7 minutes. Questions, comments, worries, concerns? Hay preguntas para mí? Nada? Anything at all?
You mentioned today that you were, standbyers or bystanders are the ones to tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Would these be more individual or more reward?
I think you create a culture of heroism in the classroom. So one of the interventions we've done, same school, that's a great school by the way. Charleston Day was great for my son. It's a kid school mismatch. One of the things that we did at that school way before any of my kids went there is we went in and we talked about we're going to have heroes in this classroom. We're going to talk about what it means to be a hero, standing up for other people. So basically you're backdooring the bullying issue. You're addressing the bullying issue, but you're really focusing on the positive, the heroism. And we had kids being nominated by their peers for doing something heroic, sharing my juice, that kind of thing, right? And at the end of the month, we had ceremonies where I brought cadets over to the university, and we presented in front of their parents in the school certificates of heroism. They were the heroes of the month. And every kid that got nominated got to stand up. And so what happened was you created a culture in that school where everyone was pulling in the same direction and were able to address it. And then you can also do it by modeling. So if a kid's being excluded or ostracized, you can help them be included. One of the worst things in the world is when you line up and you pick teams. Like there's no need to pick a team. Because the kid is not good, it's gonna be last, and that's bullying, right? So I think to change it, you change it at the grade level with the students, and that becomes a living organism. It flourishes. Can I answer it? Yeah. The other way, if you do it individually, it's really hard, because then I'm saying, will you help her because she's getting bullied? And then that again puts you in the limelight. What these kids don't want is to be in the limelight. Yes.
I have a question. So, as a teacher,
Yes.
right? What can I do to really see which students are being bullied? Okay, which are the signs or the symptoms that I can see in class
Yes.
of a student that is.
If you see a change in their academic performance, that is anytime you see a change that is not based on the difficulty of the curriculum. Like you shouldn't really see changes in grade 4 within 6 weeks. And they may struggle with some concepts, but you ought to see some consistency. If something changes academically, that's when you know. If they're withdrawn, that's when you know. So I always look for what's happening in their academic performance and what's happening in their the way they're presenting to their peers. And that's a qualitative thing, but if you know your kids, you'll know it. And then it could be a number of things. There's something called adverse childhood events. There could be all kinds of stuff happening at home. But you got to explore it, because kids' grades don't just drop that quickly. It doesn't happen. You have a consistent pattern of B's, or a consistent pattern of B's and C's, but you don't just see a drop off. They stop coming to school. They're having, Kelly Graves having stomach problems all the time. I'm sick, and well, she was anxious, right? And so she was feeling with butterflies. They don't know how to articulate that. And so they're going to the school nurse, those types of things. Isabella's doing the same thing. And I gave you 2 girls because the boys do the same type of behavior. Those are the black swans. Typically, the girls have self-esteem issues later on. And they try to control something other than their grades, which is food restriction. That's where you get those types of issues. Yeah, good question. Yes, ma'am.
I have a good question. Can this happen at a family level? I mean, can a kid be bullied or ostracized by an older parent?
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
can that impact
Yes, absolutely.
their schoolwork?
Yeah, it can. And the problem with that is the parents will not often have a hard time recognizing it because they're defensive. And they'll say, well, I was raised that way, so it worked for me, look how good I'm doing, right? So it's really hard to attack that if it's a family-based system. What you can do is you can change the interactions, and you can change the way they talk about things. So you have them stop asking judgmental questions, and you couch things in ways that are more positive, and you model that behavior. But you think about how much time you've got with kids versus how much time their parents actually devote. You don't got a lot more time. I mean, I've done the math on this, and teachers have about 80% of the time when you're really engaged in something compared to parents. So the impact of what you do far surpasses, in reality, the impact of what the parents do. And you can be a safe harbor where you're modeling appropriate behavior, and that gives them shelter in the bottom, shelter from the storm, right? I mean, it gives them a place to go. But absolutely, yeah.
So talking to parents, talking to teachers, and to the students themselves, would help in a way lower the number of bullied kids, right?
It should. It will certainly help with the ostracism, because you can really, that's the one you can really move to education. The teachers and students have got to develop an understanding that there are alternatives that are much better, and that's the heroism piece. And that's where I think that's where the impact happens.
My question was along the same lines. What kind of mechanisms do you use to generate that empathy amongst teachers and parents? Because if this isn't caught in grade school, then it moves on and progresses to middle school, and high school is more crucial, and then we see things like police in the high school.
So what you do is, if it's about a certain type of behavior, like, well, we're focusing in on kids with ADHD. But any kid that's deviant, and I'm saying deviant gently, not bad deviant, but their behavior is different than their peers, those kids are going to be targets. So what you do is you start educating the teachers about either the disorder or the behavior or the normalcy of the behavior. And I think the education piece creates empathy. Like if I told you that every morning my daughter gets up and she has lost something and her hair is not right and she can't find her books and she's grumpy before she gets her food. And if I tell you the story and how I live it, and you understand it as an educator, then you treat her differently. So there's a psychiatrist in Edmonton, and I tell you, I've heard some great talks. I've got to get this and just ask him if I can start using it. He does a story called The Life of Paul, and he has gone through the life of a kid with ADHD and implemented research finding it, and it gives you the understanding. Teachers, I think, are under such pressure to make the grade, the outcome, right, that they lose empathy sometimes because that's a distraction. Not everybody's the same. Other problem is we're pushing everybody in the same track, and that's not right. There are kids that don't need to be going to university. And we ought to praise them for their skills versus pushing them into something that's not consistent with who they are. Because they've got great traits. You can be a wonderful electrician and make a significant contribution to the world and not have a grit. And that's maybe the best thing that happen self-esteem wise, family wise, society wise, but we're pushing everybody the other way. So, cool. I'm watching you talk. Okay.
Is there a book you would recommend?
Anything by Russell Barkley. Russell Barkley trained Russell, R-U-S-S-E-L-L Barkley. Russell Barkley is the ADHD expert. Anything by Olius, Russell, R-U-S-S-E-L-L. Barkley, B-A-R-K-L-E-Y.
Okay.
Yeah, Barkley. He was at USC when he retired, and I was fortunate to be able to train under him. He's the guru of ADHD. The guru on bullying is Olius, O-L-E-W-U-S, Olius. And Olius is in South Carolina, in the upstate. And he does work on interventions in schools to help with bullying. He does it in a much more empirical, academic way. What I have done is been more clinical. I run clinicals. So I go out and do things that have some empirical basis, but I want to see if it works. His is primarily academic, so it's a more academic group. All right, y'all can clap.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.